Welcome to HomeWord. I'm Jim Burns, and I have a smile on my face today because we have a great topic for parents and a most wonderful guest in Cynthia Yanof. I was going to call today's podcast, honestly, I was going to call it The Wit and Wisdom of Cynthia. She has wisdom, she has wit. You're going to see this if you've not met her yet, because she honestly is one of the most enjoyable people that I've had to talk to in the last year or so on her podcast. Cynthia combines the sacred so well with just, in my mind, just funny. I was telling her before the podcast that Kathy and I were flying back from Guatemala this week. I was speaking there. And I started reading Cynthia's book, and then I kept interrupting her from her reading. She was reading a novel, going, oh, you got to listen to this story. Oh, you got to listen to this. I think she just looked at me like, either you're weird or Cynthia's weird. We're probably both weird. But anyway, she has a great book. It's called Life is Messy, God is Good. And I love her podcast, MESSmerized, and she may have to correct me on how she does this, but I get it. Mess, you're in a mess, and Merized. It's just a great title, actually. So she is authentic, and with her, what you see is what you get. And if you read the book, you'll totally understand that. So we all have messes in life, and I'm thinking God is good with our messes. Like I said, I was reading it, and I just was laughing out loud. And her book is a inspirational, laugh out loud type book. And here's the deal. God wants to use our messes to shape us and develop his message in us. That's one of the part of the message that Cynthia talks about. And it's going to be a great day. Cynthia worked as an attorney before her career of writing, speaking, podcasting, foster care, and hanging out with her lovely husband, Mike, who's also an attorney in Dallas, along with her 3 kids. Cynthia, I told you, I have a smile on my face. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for having me. All that was a flattering intro. Like I wanted to meet her. I was like, she sounds fabulous. So let's not be disappointed, anyone. But
No. They will not be disappointed. I am guaranteeing people. I was talking to somebody yesterday saying, I am so excited to have Cynthia on. Hey, you say that life is messy, and I agree. What do you mean by that?
well, I think it's just especially I just say this in Christian circles and um a girl who grew up in church, I just assumed life would look linear. It'd be like A to B to C to D.
Yeah.
And if it didn't go in that direction, if it wasn't linear, then something wasn't right,
Yeah.
something wasn't spiritual, something. And so for me, I just realized, I think we've all realized that if you're like a day past being out of diapers, like it's not linear.
Yeah.
There's messes all along. There's ups, there's downs, there's all kinds of places that didn't go as
Yeah.
anticipated, as planned. And so for me, I think life really does get messy, and it's in the midst of those messes we have to decide, either is it off track and this isn't something God can use, or in the midst of the mess, is he there? And even more than that, is he using those places, allowing those places in
Yeah.
order to propel us forward into what he wants us to do and be?
No, everybody on our podcast needs to hear that. We should just repeat it because it was so good. Yeah, I had an interesting experience Sunday. I was preaching in Guatemala, and this is before I read your book too. But I said to them, all of us live in messes, and God is good with our messes. They clapped. Now it's
Wow.
Guatemala, so they clap for a lot more than they
Well,
clap
true.
at your
Okay.
church or
Let's
my
not.
church.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but they clap. They were so, it was kind of like their way of saying, thank you for saying that. I mean, and
hmm
and I think what you just said helps a lot of us, because a lot of us think that, the other people in that church pew, not that I don't go to a church that has pews, but the other people, they have they have it all together or whatever. And no, we kind of all live in messes.
Yeah.
No doubt the world sends us mixed messages big time. And you kind of even refer to that. And they send us lies. And you talk about this in your book. And they send us lies about ourselves, our marriages, our parenting. What are some of the lies or mistruths that you've struggled with and, had to align yourself with truth and with God's view?
hmm
What are some of those lies for you personally?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of the lies that I've had to grapple with come with the definition of success and failure.
Hmm.
Because anytime we define success outside of what God says success is,
Yeah.
it gets a little bit slippery slope. And I think everyone would be like, yeah, I'm with you on that. True. Yeah, let's give that an amen if you're Baptist like I am. But at the end of the day, we still are defining it by what the
Yeah.
culture defines it as. And so as a parent, this is an easier example than looking at ourselves, but as a parent, you know that we are defining success by things that are measurable, right?
Yeah.
Because we can measure an ACT score, how fast your kid runs around the track,
Yeah.
their grade point, all these things. You have to have a college resume. I'm air quoting that obviously because I mean, who had a college resume? My goodness, when we are our age. But you have to have all these things that are measurable to be successful. Again, air quoted. And here's the thing: as Christians, as believers in our own lives and in the lives of our kids, the things we want the very most, the things that are most God honoring, are the things that are not measurable.
Yeah.
And so I want my kid to take themselves off a group text that is not kind. I want my kid to be nice to the kid in the cafeteria. I want my kids to do the things that are not Instagrammable, the things that won't get them
Mm.
called to the front of the gymnasium for some sort of certificate, right? But that's hard when we're measuring success by the things that are measurable. And so I think that's a lie in my kids' lives, in my own life, that I've had to fight a lot, is that just because it's not measurable doesn't mean it's not good, right, and worthy.
Well, that's another mic drop. You have 2 mic drops.
Oh gosh,
I'm gonna
thank you.
start
Let me throw my
counting.
mic down.
You're like
It's
2
fine.
mics in a row there, and that's with no, pun on Mike Segovia, who is our wonderful producer,
Oh
who,
yes.
is actually listening in on this conversation. Wow, that's so good. Many of our listeners and also the people who watch it on YouTube, because your beautiful faces on YouTube today as well, we kinda live in survival mode. I mean, let's face it, we're just trying to get through Thursday, and then we wake up on Friday, and now we're trying to get through Friday, and, then there's the weekend, and, we just kinda go from, day to day trying to make it happen. One of the things I thought was interesting in your book is you say that you have found that in the creeks and the caves of life,
Mhm.
this is where a lot of times, you can meet God and find your success in
Mhm.
the creeks and the caves. What did you mean by that?
Yeah. As you mentioned earlier on, our family did foster care. And there was one particular point in the foster care process where the Lord could have just answered the prayer and allowed our child to be adoptable. And it was a tough situation we were walking through. And I remember going for a walk literally in our neighborhood. And I was standing there and I was just like, Lord, this is tough because I know you can do all things. I believe that as a girl who has grown up in church and has a strong relationship with the Lord, like I know you can do all things. Why not? Like there's nothing self-serving in this
Right.
prayer. And I felt like the Lord was like, I was happened to literally be standing over a creek again. And so I felt like the Lord is like, you need to stack some stones. And so I'm thinking like, remember in biblical times, we would stack stones after
Right.
a big miracle across the Jordan, stack stones. And they would say, so we'd never forget what God did. And so I was like, well, this is going to get weird. And so I was like, I guess I'm going to go down here and stack some stones. And so that's what I did, Jim. I went down there and I stacked
Mm.
a stone for when my husband nearly died from encephalitis, but he didn't. And I stacked a stone for when a paycheck was provided that we desperately needed when
Mm.
we were young marrieds. And I stacked another one for two healthy kids. And I kept stacking all these stones. And in that moment, it wasn't that I stacked stones only the times that God was faithful.
Mm.
It was this reminder that God isn't a I'm going to save you from a situation God, but I'm going to be with you through the
Mm.
situation God,
Mm.
right? Like I'm not going to spare you from everything that's hard that you're going to walk through, but I am going to be with you and I'm the God over those circumstances. And so in that moment, as I was stacking stones, I was reminded like sometimes you've just got to get in the creek, right? You've got to stack some stones in
Mm.
those hard places. And I think it's Max Lucado that says, the best thing you can do in the hard is have a long memory of God's goodness. And
Mm.
so I would say that when I talk about that, getting in the creeks and the caves, right? I'm talking about like be willing to get down and remember the hard places and trust God that even if he's not going to remove you from the situation, he will preserve you through it.
Yeah. Wow. That's just a great reminder that sometimes our circumstances don't change, but our attitude can change, and that makes all
Yeah.
the difference in the world. And I love the analogy that you give about stacking stones. That's super. You've kind of stacked some stones with what you call your four crazy friends. And
Yeah.
I love that you call. I want to just listen in. I told you on your podcast one day. I just wanted to one day crawl inside your brain and try to figure it out. But now you talk about these four crazy friends in your book, and you kind of walk through life together. I call that
Mhm.
a circle of support. And really, there are not a lot of people who are blessed to have four crazy friends. We have acquaintances, but when it comes to friends, people who would, take the bullet for you, do whatever, whatever. And I have that. I'm in a small group. I've been in it for 23 years.
Mm.
Every Tuesday, I'm with these guys, and they're my five crazy friends,
Yeah.
and yeah, they're fun, they're crazy. We have a blast together, and at the same time, we do life. And when we need to get serious, we get serious. Uh, but I want to hear about your four crazy friends. Tell me what that means to you to have these
Yeah.
friends who kind of walk along life with you.
Yeah. I mean, you're never going to go to like lunch with someone or have coffee and they're going to be like, you know what, Jim, I'm struggling. I just have too much connection in my life. Like nobody says that, right? Like we're looking for this deep connection in this community. And I'm thankful like you that I have that, but I think we take for granted. I think we do two things. One, we either take for granted it's just going to happen and we're not willing to put in the work, which I've done in the past. I feel you on that. The other thing is we start valuing quantity over quality. If
Yeah,
I don't have 30 friends, then
yeah,
never mind the 3 I have. And
right.
I always my one of my very favorite stories in the Bible, I talk about it in the book, is where the guys, the four friends pick up the guy who can't walk and they're carrying him to Jesus on his mat. And they get there and it's too crowded, they can't get in. So they go up on the roof and they cut a hole and they lower him in, right? And Jesus says this to him. He says, I am healing you because of the faith of your friends. And I'm just going to say this: if Jesus is healing people because of the faith of their friends,
Yeah,
then like your circle matters, right? Like it's
right,
important. And
right,
so what you need is, you don't need the 10,000 friends, right?
right.
You need the four crazy ones that are like, listen, I know we've gotten to the door and we can't even get you in, but you need Jesus so bad that I'm going to carry your
Mm,
chubby behind to the second floor. I'm going to cut a hole and lower you in because that's how bad you need Jesus. Like those are the people you metaphorically need,
right.
not the ones that are like, man, the marriage is too hard. I don't know what to tell you. Or your kids are doing stupid things and I don't want to be involved in that. Those aren't your people. Your people are the ones that believe in your dreams when
Yeah,
nobody else, including yourself, believes in them. They believe in your marriage when that marriage is hard. They're the people that show up. And so I think that we get it confused in this culture is that we need to have a ton of friends, or I'm the worst. I get on Instagram and I see that, Jim lives in Dana Point and invited a bunch of people to come see him and I didn't get invited. I'm like, well, great. Everybody hates me. I knew it. Right. But like, if you can value the 3 or 4 or however many God given crazy friends you have, like that's what you need. And if you don't have that community, I believe that the Lord honors that prayer. And I believe that if you will start praying for that and that you will be
yeah,
intentional in that, in being that friend, as well as trying to
yeah,
receive those friendships, I
yeah.
believe the Lord will honor that.
Yeah, no, and I think, and I'm an extrovert, so I'm probably more friends. Kathy is an introvert, my wife, and she
Mhm.
doesn't need even maybe
Yeah.
four deep friends. She's got like a couple of buddies who are closer than there's a sister to her, and she does it that way. And so it doesn't have to always look the same either. Even when I tell people I'm in a small group and I've been in it for a long time, they go, oh, I want that small group. Well, actually, maybe it's having coffee with somebody on a regular basis, taking a walk around a park.
Mhm.
And by the way, you and Mike are more than invited to come to Dana Point anytime. And, uh,
Thank you. I
and
mean, it was
so,
awkward because I had to invite myself and
yeah,
everyone heard it and I saw it. Now it's on YouTube, but it's fine. We're good. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm not coming.
that,
Mhm.
that is funny. Uh, Speaking of friends, so you tell a story in your book at the beginning. And you and a couple of your friends, I don't know if it's even the same four, decided to go to what you called a healthy eating
Mhm.
class, or
Yeah.
at least that's one of the ways that you described it. I want you to
Mhm.
take it from there.
I will
Tell
take
us a
it from
story.
there. Yeah, I think it's a different group of crazy friends, but yeah, some crazy friends. We decided to go to this healthy eating class, and I can say this, it was fat camp, and so we went to this class at this church, this local church, and they were doing Lisa Turkhurst's book, like Made to Crave, which by the way is a great book. But I was like, okay, we're gonna go, and so we're a couple weeks in, and I got there a little bit late, and my friends are sitting around the round table, and they're so cute, and so I slide in, and now picture this, you guys, we're in a room full of people, like maybe 150, 200 people that we don't know except the 3 or 4 of us. And I look over at my cute little friend. It's winter and she has on a little scarf. I'm like, she's so cute over there, writing in her journal. I can do all things through Christ, little journal, that we all have. And she's taking notes. And then I'm like, wait, what's on her scarf? Like an accessory to an accessory? Like, what am I looking at? And y'all, I realize sitting in fat camp, unbeknownst to her, my friend had a French fry lodged in her scarf, a French fry. And apparently, we're not talking like McDonald's, you guys. That would have been maybe almost justifiable. The girl had been through the Chick-fil-A drive-through, which is like God's chicken, so I think it's still holy. But she had been through the drive-through and accidentally dropped a fry in her scarf, and
You're
it made
talking a
it
waffle fry is what you're
a
talking
waffle
about.
fry.
Those
It
big
made it to
things, right?
fat camp.
I
Yes,
love it.
and I say there, yeah, I laugh about it. I mean, we're still laughing at it. I tell that story when I speak a lot of times because it's always a winner story. But I always also kind of say like, listen, aren't every one of us walking around life in some regard with a French fry in our scarf? Sometimes we know it, sometimes we don't. But
Yeah.
like we have the best laid intentions. But if you're driving through on your way to fat camp, you're probably missing the forest for the trees. And I thought, isn't that about right in life, right?
Oh, I love that story, but I love the fact that it's true because we have great intentions, but it's not easy, and you kind of sometimes have to take 5 steps forward and 4 steps back, even at fat camp,
Mhm.
and then sometimes it's 5 steps back and 4 steps forward. But that's kind of
Yeah.
life, so you got to stay in the journey. Listen, we're going to take a
Yeah.
quick break. We'll be right back. Wow. Cynthia is so good, and this is so good for all of us to hear. We have some information on her book, Life is Messy, God is Good. If you're on the YouTube, you can see it, but actually, you can see it. If you're on the YouTube, you can see it right behind her, too. Isn't it a great cover? Great looking cover. I read this cover to cover. I may be the only male who read this cover to cover, but I don't think it's just for women. And I love her subtitles called Sanity for the Chaos of Everyday Life. All of that information is on our podcast notes. So go pick this up. You will enjoy it. I read it this week. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Hi, Jim Burns here. I am so excited about what's going on at HomeWord. Some of you are just learning that things are changing around here, and one of the most exciting things changing is our new president, Marcus. And Marcus, tell us what's going on with HomeWord.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Really appreciate it. So excited to share with you, give you a glimpse of what God is doing in this new season at HomeWord. And it's a blend. It's a blend of new and tried and true. And our mission right now is how do we take these 4 decades, these 40 years of ministry, of resources, of principles that God has been changing lives throughout the nation and beyond, and expand that, but also tether it to a younger generation. And the way we're going to do that is through a blend of tried and true resources and principles and events, as well as new initiatives. And I'll start off with the new. On the new side, we have a new website. We are rebranding. We've got new staff. We've got new faces and new voices to our growing social media presence, and that is wonderful. But also on the tried and true side, we've got a Refreshing Your Marriage retreat that has been an amazing, impactful event. We've got our conferences like Trainer for Trainers, and our resources like our books that we're going to continue to write and expand and change lives. Speaking of which, Jim, share with us the latest update of what's going on in the book world here at
You
HomeWord.
got it. And I'm excited about your leadership, and I'm excited about where we're going at HomeWord. It's going to be pretty incredible. Yeah, we've got a book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children. We have other books, of course, but that's still on the bestseller list after 5 years. Even this month, it's on the bestseller list. And now there's a new one that's going to be coming out called When Your Adult Child Strays, Trading Heartache for Hope. And I'm doing this book right now, and there's going to be a course with it. And we have other books on sexuality and things like that that are really, really making a difference all around this world.
So with all the things going on right now at HomeWord, here's what you can do. God is putting in our heart this desire and this plan to expand our Refreshing Your Marriage conference that I recently attended, and it helped my wife and I have a breakthrough that God was working in our hearts for a while. But beyond that, I saw other couples experiencing the same thing. So we are going to expand our Refreshing Your Marriage conference, take it to other cities, and we want to be able to not only help make sure that happens, but also those that can't afford it, that need to be resourced and some scholarships. So we want to make sure nobody misses out on a chance to get their marriage refreshed and to draw closer to the Lord. So I'm asking you to make a special gift above and beyond to support that. Thank you so much, HomeWord.
Welcome back. I'm Jim Burns. Still kind of laughing about that last thing. I've always wondered what it would be like to have a waffle fry on my scarf. Not actually. I don't wear scarves, and I don't eat a whole lot of waffle fries, but it sounds good. And maybe tonight is the night for Kathy and me to go get a waffle fry. Just recently our house flooded. We have no furniture in our house for like 2 months now. And so we've been doing a lot more going out to eat, but we've kind of missed it through that Christian chicken thing. And so maybe we need to go do that. Cynthia. Sometimes people, and you talk about this so well, walk away from the church, and you called these people church people, and you said church people are funny, which they are. I mean, your kind of mindset and maybe mine too. But one of the things you said, and I thought this was so good, you said there are a million reasons to walk away from the church, but Jesus is the one reason to stay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Unpack that.
Well, yeah, if you've been in church very long, if you've grown up in church, maybe if you haven't grown up in church, but there's a lot of weird church people. I'm one of them. So is Jim. No offense, Jim. I mean, I get that, and there's certain idiosyncrasies in the church.
Mm,
There's certain
right.
ways we do things. Like I don't want to brag everybody, but I've been on the committee on committees, and you have to be very Baptist to know what that is over the years. And so I married a guy who came to faith in high school, and there's not a Christian in his family. And so I think, acutely aware of all the idiosyncrasies. And I understand that in the midst of all this church stuff, that there is hurt. There's some things maybe in the capital C church that we've said are okay that are not okay.
Yeah.
There's some things we've let slide longer than they need to. There's some battles that we have been picking that maybe we don't need to pick. And I love the church. So hear me say this loud and clear. I am a huge proponent of the church, but I also know that there can be some hurt there. I was involved in a ministry for many years. It came to an abrupt end, and that's some of the deepest church hurt I've ever felt.
Mm,
And walking through that, I feel like on the other side of it, I just realized, and I think we all need to realize that, like, to miss the beauty of the church because of the missteps of its people is a huge, huge disservice to yourself and to your faith walk. And so I think
mm,
we have to say, like, the people aren't Jesus, like, right? The church, capital C church, I mean, that is a Jesus, a God ordained institution that we need to be a part of, where we can go and we can be surrounded by people that love us, that are chasing after the things we're chasing but we're going to get it wrong. And so, listen, I have people that have caused me church hurt, and I have to go back to say, like, listen, they're not God. They're not Jesus. Like, only Jesus is Jesus. And you know what? I'm probably someone's church hurt too. I hope not,
mm,
but I wouldn't say definitively I'm not. And so I think that we've got to be just really careful
mm,
about that. That if you want deep friendship, if you want connection, if you want people that are
mm.
chasing after things that you are, they're going to support you and love you and walk you towards the cross. They are in the church, not exclusively. I'm not saying there's not those people outside the church, but if you're looking for
Yeah.
that deep connection, you're going to find it in church.
Yeah.
And you're also going to have some hard places you're going to
Uh,
walk. And that's part of the journey of forgiveness and being drawn back to the Savior.
I really like that you said that because church can be messy. Life's messy, but
Mhm.
sometimes church is messy. I was talking with a woman maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was at a conference and she said, "Well, we're trying to get back into the church because our pastor had some moral issues." And I get that. I mean, it was terrible, and I
Yeah.
actually know the story. It was a very large church, and many of us know that story. And yet, she had chosen to stay away from the church, capital C, because of a pastor who had made really poor choices. And I get that. You're hurt, you're shocked, you're whatever. But I love that you said there is a reason to be in church, and it's actually Jesus. And,
Mhm.
we can't oversimplify that, but it is true that, the people in my life who I'm closest to are church people. And the people who I've been inspired by most are church people. Are they perfect? No, but these are good people. I remember my daughter Becca. She traveled with me for about 4 years as I was speaking, and we went all over the world. And I remember we're coming back from Beijing one time, and we'd been with some people who were amazing in China. And I don't think Becca even knew there were Christians in China, more evangelical Christians in China than here in the United States. And she said, "Dad, everywhere I go, these are the best people." And she
Mm.
was living in a world that also had a lot of secular people. And like you said, there's some great people who are secular people. I get it.
Yeah.
But she goes, "These are the best." I mean, I really feel seen. I feel heard. I feel cared for. And she was getting in the middle of getting her master's in clinical psych. And it was so interesting because church people, as goofy as they can be, are also wonderful people, and they mean well and they have
Mhm.
great intentions. And this is a podcast that deals with strong marriages, empowered
Mhm.
kids, confident parents, that kind of a thing. And what we're saying is that those are the kind of people that you want your kids to be influenced by too, as well as us. Look at
Yeah.
here's a fascinating one. Um, you have a younger child and you have some older children. I mean, they're not
Mhm.
super old, but they're still what we would now call emerging adults, or as they go on. Have the rules changed much around the playground these days since your older kids were on the playground, and now you got a younger one that's that's still kind of hanging out in that world?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's two ways to look at that. Have the rules changed in my house? For sure. Have the rules changed in the world? Yeah, in some
Yeah.
ways, yes. In
Yeah.
some ways, no. We kind of talked about this earlier. We talked about, how we're defining success, and I think for me now, I'm redefining failure.
Hmm.
To touch back on that for a minute, in my parenting, I would say the things that I thought would have been catastrophic, the things that were deal breakers, the things that were the big failures are not big failures to me anymore because
Yeah.
I've now seen how God uses them. If I could
Sure.
tell you a quick story in that, I have a one of my sons, my middle one, he's just graduating right now, just graduated from high school. And so I live in Texas and we're real serious about football in Texas and barbecue, but we're very serious about football. And it's
Tex-Mex
his
too. Tex-Mex.
Tex-Mex, yeah,
You
don't
got to
mess
bring
around
that
with
in
our
too.
with our Mexican food either.
Yeah.
And so he was a sophomore in high school, and this was the year he's going to play football, Friday Night Lights, and so we are ready. And I had the like button with his face on it on my shirt, and wore his like extra jersey, like it was a lot, y'all, too much even for me. And so week after week, like they didn't put him in, they didn't put him in. I'm like, what's going on? So the season ends, and he never got put in.
Oh dear.
And so we had to go to the football banquet. And I was like saying to my husband, I'm like, man, is there any way to skip this? And my husband's like, no, we're going to be like real grown-ups and go, even though our
Yeah.
son had a horrible season. And at the end, the last award, I mean, we're 4 hours into these football banquets. Like I had a bed sore, Jim. Okay, that's how long these football banquets
That's so
last.
true.
And they call my son up, and I'm like, Coach, you got the wrong kid. Like he didn't play. And he starts talking about the scout team. And he's like, this is the team. And these are really more my words than his, but it's the team that gets the real team ready to play on Friday nights.
Yeah.
And he gave my son the scout team award.
Wow.
And in that moment, I learned something. I learned that, listen, what looked like a failure to us,
Wow.
like he acknowledged and redefined that as a success. And just because your name isn't called on the loudspeaker doesn't mean your contribution doesn't count. Just because you didn't get the
Mm,
big MVP, whatever
mm,
thing for the whole district doesn't mean that it wasn't significant what you did. And
right.
he took a perceived failure and named it a success. And I
Wow.
would say for me, having older kids and a younger kid, I'm all about taking perceived failures and naming them success because I know through Jesus, that's what he does.
Yeah.
Like in my own life and in my kids. And so I have my youngest who we adopted out of foster care, I've referenced. He is just headed to third grade and he struggles to read. I mean, struggles. Like
Mhm.
we're barely reading. That would have sent me over the edge the first two kids. But I'm
Yeah.
looking at this, I'm like, look, the Lord's just going to take this somehow and do something incredible and make
Mhm.
him hardworking, or he's going to be illiterate and I guess we'll just raise him the rest of his life. But I choose to believe and take this perceived failure and name
Love
it a
it.
success because that's the business that the Lord is
Yeah.
in. And
Yeah.
so, back to your original point, I would say, in terms of how I parent, yes, I think we're redefining success and failure. We're not sweating the things that aren't eternal. And I would say, number one for me is that what seems most important in any given moment almost never is.
So, so
And
good.
so that's
Wow.
what's different, I think, on
No,
my side of it.
no, that's interesting. And what I hear you saying is, that's in your world. So, a lot of times if I ask that question, I think people would go right into, well, social media is different or this and that's different. And it is. Those kind of things are different. But really how we parent, you see now failure in a different way, in a different mindset. And that's really helpful. Another mic drop, by the way. Okay. So
Oh,
I'm counting your
well,
mic drops. And I've never said this once
stressful.
on our
Yeah.
podcast. Our podcast is a year old, and I don't think I've ever used the word mic drop before, and that's with no reference to your or pun to your husband's name, Mike.
Well,
So you
that's
don't want
fine.
to
I'm gonna go
don't
back and listen and make
yeah.
sure you're not just
So
saying that.
so don't drop. Yeah, you can listen to all of them. You'll
I
but
will.
don't drop Mike. Just a mic drop.
Hey,
Okay.
Mike. Okay. Got it. Got
Um,
it.
so fascinating enough, you were an attorney, which cracks me up. And any of our listeners who have now been listening to you for 27 minutes would go, she was an attorney, because your personality doesn't seem to be what some attorneys. I'm one of my best friends is an attorney who's just like you, and he's awesome. But you had a friend named Elaine,
Mm,
and actually, you have a story about Elaine.
yeah.
She passed away, and what did you
Hmm.
learn from Elaine?
Yeah. My friend Elaine was amazing. And yes, you can just say it like attorneys are boring. I'm bored by all of them, most of them. I'm married to one. I love him. He's not boring, but listen, I can say it like we're kind of boring people. And so nobody told me that when you got to the law firm, because I didn't grow up with lawyers, nobody told me that people in law firms care about the law. Like I was shocked. I thought we were just going to have like, I don't know, go have fun and wear cool clothes and make some good money. And then I got there. I was like, well, this is horrible. But I found Elaine and it was fabulous because Elaine was hilariously funny and amazing. And I'll tell you one quick thing. One time we decided we wanted to make more money. And I don't mean work harder and get a bonus. I mean, we decided to try to print currency. And I'll just tell you that didn't end well at the law firm. I mean, we didn't serve hard time in federal prison as we should have, but nonetheless, it wasn't our best moment. But Elaine, I quit working when my kids were pretty little, and Elaine stayed in the game for a long time. And then as her kids got in high school, she quit. And the partners in the firm were like, "Oh my gosh, you can't quit. You have such a promising future. You can't quit. Promising future." By the way, when I quit, Jim, not a one stopped me and said, "Hey, promising future." They were like, "Don't let the door hit you, ma'am." So she ended up quitting, and her husband were at her funeral, and she died suddenly, like in
Mm,
the moment. Nobody's
mm,
expecting it. And young. And her husband said something. He said, when she quit, they kept talking on her promising future, but she, instead of her promising future, wanted to live in her cherished present with her kids.
wow.
And I'll just tell you something. We're all living for the promising future in some
Right.
way or another. We're looking for retirement. We're waiting for our husband to stop traveling as much. We're waiting for our kids to grow up a little more. We're waiting for our finances to be better. Maybe we're waiting on a lake house, or I don't know what it is, but there's some promising future that we're waiting on. And I would just say, like, today's the day. Like, the Lord
Mm,
put breath in your lungs today. And so now we have the
mm,
opportunity to live in a cherished present. And I think Elaine would say, like, make the phone call your mom, go to
mm.
counseling, forgive someone, get over the grudge, like whatever it is, but don't wait on the promising future when today's the cherished
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
So that's my hope. My hope and my story from Elaine. I adored Elaine, and her kids are doing great. But what, man, hard lesson to learn for
No,
sure.
no, tough, but a incredible reminder that, our days are numbered, and we're to number our days, and we're to make each day count if we possibly can. And sometimes it's not in those any of the big things that you named.
Right.
It's in making the phone call. It's in saying I'm sorry. It's in telling a loved one that you love them. It's in putting some energy in with your relationship with God, because that's eternal. It's those things. I love that. We don't have much time left, but I want you to speak to the mom or the dad, because, by the way, you sometimes, I know you talk to moms, but you're talking to us dads too, and they're in the midst of a mess, and they're just trying to get through the day. They're feeling somewhat hopeless. Speak to them. Give us some hope as we kind of end this part of the podcast. Remind us, we can get through this mess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one, you're not walking the road alone, right?
Mm,
You're not walking the road alone. We're all struggling in some form or fashion. Having the vulnerability to be able to speak that,
mm,
and surround yourself by people who will encourage you in that, I think that's critical. I would say this too, back to my law for 1 second. I have another law friend, and y'all are going to be like, remember that depressing girl who came on and talked about all her law friends? But let me just briefly tell you, she one day was at home and felt like the Lord said, teach your kids how to call 911. And so she did it, but she was kind of like, why am I teaching this? They're little. And a couple hours later, she had a massive seizure, and
wow.
she had written 911 on a whiteboard for her girls to teach them. And they ran and grabbed that whiteboard and brought it back, and they were able to do the very things she told them to do.
Wow.
And here's the thing, when she taught them 911, it didn't make sense to her why she was teaching them, and it
Yeah.
didn't make sense to them.
So
And the same thing as everyday life, you guys. Like, listen, we're writing a story with our whiteboard, but don't we want it to be the one the Lord is orchestrating? And when He does that in the middle of the mess, sometimes it doesn't make sense. But you have the life saving and life giving information that our culture desperately needs. And so, in the midst of the hard, I would say, listen, write a whiteboard that is significant, that only the Lord can
mm,
orchestrate. And when it doesn't make sense and we're struggling and it's hard, trust that He does. He orchestrates all things. He has the bigger picture, and we can trust Him in that.
wow. Cynthia, this has been awesome. Your input is so,
Mhm.
so good. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for
Um,
having me. And thanks for not saying lover, Jim. He said lover on my podcast, y'all. It was terrible. I had to tell him we're not allowed to say that word
say
anymore.
lover
So
or hug or something.
hug,
Hold
all the
hands. Right,
things.
right, right.
Jim, you're
I
the
love it.
best.
Well,
Thank you.
anyway, this has been wonderful. I knew it would be. Thank you again for being with us, Cynthia. And friends, pick up her book, Life is Messy, God is Good. All things Cynthia are on our podcast notes. And you know what? You want her as your friend to help her kind of join you in your journey. And you can do that as you get more information about all the great stuff she's doing. And, listen to her podcast. It's fun, hilarious, and as you can just see, also really meaningful. Hey, I also hope that you'll subscribe to our podcast. Go to homeword.com and get all that you can from HomeWord. We want to come alongside you, and I'm so grateful for people all over this beautiful world who are joining us on this podcast. It's pretty incredible. I had people in Guatemala City last week talking to us about our podcast, and that's pretty incredible. Let us know how we can help you. And by the way, HomeWord is the largest provider of parenting seminars in the U.S. I probably don't talk about it enough on this podcast. Check out our website on how your church or group might be able to bring one of us out for a live and in-person seminars with topics like creating a media-safe home, teaching your children healthy sexuality, generation to generation, engaging your family's spiritual life. These are some of my favorite. Doing life with your adult children. That's maybe becoming one of our bigger ones. Creating an intimate marriage, and a lot more. So you can go to the website, get lots of that. But also at the website, you can also get some of your questions answered. And it's just a great place. Well, anyway, thanks again for Cynthia being with us today. What a great podcast. It's the reason I do podcasts, is for you to get this kind of content so good and handed to you in a fun way as well. What a fun, informative podcast. Until next time, I'm Jim Burns. We'll see you later.